Hello and welcome to Story Hour. I'm Kathy Ramsperger, author of the award-winning The Shores of Our Souls. I'm also an intuitive coach who founded Ground One and Step Into Your Story. I'm here with Kaylee Mullis to connect people, both readers and writers who love books. Welcome if you're one of those. And welcome even if you're not. I concentrate mainly on transformational stories of social justice that focus on the connections and sometimes the disconnections between cultures. And today I'd like to introduce you to author Karen Neary and her mystery novels. A little bit about Karen and then a little bit about the book, and then we'll launch into questions. But welcome, Karen. So nice to have you here. I've wanted to meet you for a while. Karen wanted to be a painter and not a writer when she was young.
Thank you. It's great to be.
And she's had a fascinating career: a child advocate, a human rights commissioner, and an art educator. She finds writing her story world magical, and she still paints and has her work featured in local galleries. She's fascinated with coins of the Hellenistic and Roman periods, and perhaps that led her to place today's featured book in Venice. We'll have to see. To round out her creative life, she's been known to pop up as an extra in Baltimore films and TV series. And I asked her while we were waiting in the green room, were you an extra in Homicide: Life on the Streets? And she was. That was my favorite show back then. She lives with her husband and rescue cats turned show cats. That's really interesting story right there, all by itself, in Ellicott City, Maryland, not far from Baltimore. And here's a little bit about the book from a reader and reviewer named Candace Jarrett. Very good review because it tells a lot about the book. This book was intense. You will not be able to put it down. This is a murder mystery that will keep you guessing until the end, but when you find out who the killer is, your heart will still be pounding out of your chest, because by that point, you know this author means business and anything can happen. That was so true for me. So true. Anything could happen because you let a lot of things happen in a realistic way, and I really appreciated that. One of the things I loved most about this book, and this is Candace talking, but I agree with it. One of the things I loved most about this book was how immersed I felt in Venice throughout. I've been to the city twice and it's absolutely magical. The book transported me right back there into the shops and the streets, walks along the canals, seeing the sights, the Vaporetto rides. I keep saying sides, romantic sides, because of that. This book was the vacation I needed, having been so cooped up during this, you know what, the thing that will not be named. This author's writing style is immersive and vivid without getting in the way of the action. The perfect mix, in my opinion. I agree. You will feel totally transported. So welcome, Karen, and we're going to try this. This is live, and we're having a little technical difficulty with lag time in the sound and the audio. The audio and the video. We're going to try it this way. I wanted to see if we could get Karen's lovely face up there for you to see. I think it's so much better when we can see the author. And if not, we're going to have to get off and come back. And I just need to warn you that if I will warn you if we're coming back, but I think we're going to be okay. So Karen, when did you decide you wanted to write mysteries?
Okay, so I never planned to write mysteries, but I had been writing historical fiction, which I enjoyed reading, and I like history and researching. So I wasn't having any luck getting an agent or getting those books published. So I was talking to my husband saying that, well, maybe I'll switch to a genre. So I was thinking about the genres, and I knew romance would not work. So I thought I'll give that a try. And so then I did. So one day I was reading in the Writer's Digest magazine a very short article about a nurse who, when she was younger, celebrity couples in Hollywood. And I found that article interesting, and I told my husband about it. And he said, well, then why don't you write Death of the Hollywood Nanny? And that is what became my first book, Death in Disguise.
Oh, wow. I love that story behind the story. So did your painting and acting careers lead you toward another creative pursuit? Do you see them in working in unison?
Um, well, maybe now, but originally, no. What happened is I was living in Florida and I was working in a shelter for battered women. And I got the idea that instead of just, interesting to write a story that had the central character in the same situation that the women found themselves in. And that's what inspired me to start writing.
Wow. I love that. Why? I always ask people I coach, what's your why? Why are you the person to write this book? And that's a big why. That's fantastic. So I love the first line in your book description. Venice, an evocative and bewitching city of canals, art, romance, and murder. So why did you set the book in Venice?
So I set the book in Venice. It evolved out of the first book. So my main characters, who are married, newlyweds, never had time for a honeymoon. So the first book ended with them planning to go to Venice for their honeymoon. And that's why I went with that. Now, I went to Venice on my honeymoon. So and I've been to Venice. I've studied in Venice and I visited a number of times. So I really love Venice. And I know there's two camps. I hate Venice. I love Venice. I'm in the I love Venice camp. So I just thought it would be fun to write a book with that backdrop.
I think I would be too, especially after the film that was taken during lockdown. You could just see that city as a city. It was strange seeing it without people, but it showed how gorgeous it was,
Right.
in a way that you couldn't with all the crowds. And I'm going to get there. I've been to Italy, but not Venice.
Oh, good.
My daughter, ironically, has been to Venice. It's just not fair, but I'm going to get there. So
Yeah.
look at,
Well, the thing about Venice is once you, okay, as I was saying, once you leave the main St. Mark's Square and the Rialto area, you just have to go a few streets away from there. That's the true Venice. So, and there are no crowds there. It's just Venetians, and it's just really nice. And I tried to put some of that into the book.
you did a superb job of it. It was really well researched, and I could tell you had been there. As a reader, I could tell you had been there. But you probably needed to do more research beyond that, right? It shows. So, I interview mostly people who write about different lands and cultures. And I know a little bit about you, the author. What are the similarities between Baltimore, Ireland, and Venice? And what are the differences in your experience? Or Italy, I should say Italy.
Okay, well,
Baltimore is like a land in of itself.
Italy, okay. Well, Baltimore has always been like a working class city. However, now, as you mentioned, homicide, life in the streets, it is so unlike a lot of the areas surrounding Baltimore. That is more like, you know, Italy, because it's beautiful and, you know, beautiful landscapes and mountains, and then there's and some similarities. In Baltimore, there are some wonderful museums. There's a Walters Art Gallery, or now it's called the Walters Art Museum, and that is my most favorite museum. And it has such a wonderful collection, not just of two-dimensional art, as in paintings, but it has a wonderful collection of ancients and medieval art. And it's just a fascinating place. And on top of that, we have the Baltimore Museum of Art, which is very well known for the Cone collection, who were two sisters who, in the early part of the 20th century, collected, they were very interested in modern art, and they collected a wonderful collection and an incredible amount of Matisses. So in that respect, Baltimore has some wonderful art, and it also has been called monuments. And just like Venice, it has a lot of monuments and museums, and Italy is full of history and museums. So I think there's a similarity.
Interesting. So, how does your own Irish heritage play into your writing? And I'm figuring you probably grew up telling stories, because I have a lot of Celtic in me as well. And I remember sitting on porches and listening to story after story from my family.
Well, that's true. I'm 41% Irish, and I don't know that I told where the Irish comes from. Was a wonderful storyteller, and we would always beg for him to tell us stories. He could tell a story, and he could make up the most amazing story about it. So we always loved for when he would entertain us with his wonderful stories. And then when I was in Ireland, I did kiss the Blarney Stone, so I guess I gave me the gift of gab, and
maybe that's why I can have this live now.
Can write, so. So that's how I think.
Wow. Well, you are a born storyteller, because it really kept me turning the page. Was the writing of the second book in the series easier or more difficult than writing the first book, and why?
Okay, well, so the way it worked out is that I wrote the first book, and then I wrote the second book directly after it, that there was really any time between the two books. But the thing that I did find interesting is when I went back to the first book, and I had developmental edits. I'm in a wonderful critique group, and I wrote the book probably 4 or 5 times. And then when I looked at the second book, I was really surprised, because I had developed my main characters so much more, and they seemed so flat in the second book. So what I did is I had to go back and rewrite that. I only rewrote it one additional time from the first draft. However, when I got about 125 pages into the book, I was thinking it was way too linear. And I was thinking I have to do something with this. So I decided to introduce a new character, and I had to go back to probably the third chapter and put him in and add some chapters. So I think that helped the book and make it a little more interesting.
I don't know how you wrote a second book in a mystery series. I think that takes a very different mind because you have to have everything organized. And I'm wondering if but also if we have any questions, Kaylee.
Yes, hello everybody. We do have two questions. The first one is from Tatiana Ramsoff. She says hello, and she is interested in knowing which character do you, Karen, most identify with in your book, and what characteristics do you share?
Okay. Probably in this book, maybe Deidre, because she's a teacher, and she, though I'm not a mother, but she's a mother. She's very loving, and she loves her students, and she's also a writer. So I guess that would be the one that maybe I most identify with.
She has a big heart. She's the kind of person that cares about everybody, full of compassion and maternal nurturing.
So we're good there.
Oh,
and then another question just came in, but I'll ask the second question really quickly. It is from Shanessa Glum, and she says, hi, Karen. She hasn't gotten to read your books yet, but they both sound great. She loved your book trailer for Death in Disguise, and it's one of the best she's ever seen. So she's wondering how involved you were in the creation of that trailer.
Okay, very good. Well, there's also the new trailer for Death Unmasked, so that one is out also. I work with Electra Fox, and she makes the book trailers. She does a lot of the work, and it's wonderful. She reads the book, she writes the script, she sends me the script, I go over the script, we make changes, we tweak it. She goes back and she does the all the visual parts, and she even does the voice. For the first video, I had hired an Irish actress to do the voice part. And when I got it back, what she had done, it just did not, you could tell she didn't read the book, so she really didn't know the character, and it was very flat. So Candace, who's very, and Candace owns Electra Fox, she studied that. She basically does it all. So I really recommend Electra Fox.
Fantastic. I had some issues with the voiceover on my trailer too, having it be flat. So it's really good to hear about somebody that cares about that kind of thing.
It's very interesting that books have trailers. I've never thought of that concept, but I guess with the digital age, it's an important thing. Right. It's interesting to hear. We have two more questions. Should we ask them now, or should we continue on?
Let's go ahead.
All right. So the third one is from Noelle Puglisi, and she's asking, did you know the ending ahead of time, or did you let things unfold as you were writing?
Oh yeah, I never really know much. I only know the chapter I'm working on. I'm a pantser, so I just write it as it comes. So it's always interesting for me to see how things turn out.
That sounds like an exciting way to write things, I think. And then
it really is.
Our last question as of right now is from, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Is it Rena or Rihanna? But she says, hi, Karen, you're a new author to me. So which book would you recommend for a first-time reader?
Okay, I think it's always good to read the books in order. So time-wise, they're only a few months. So the first book starts in April, the second book starts in June. So they kind of move chronologically that way.
And your sound lagged a little bit when you were saying the book title of the first book. What is the first book?
Just give me 1 second, because so it's a Beth Getty mystery. And the first one, I'm on the page with the second one. I think it's Death in Disguise, but I want to make sure that I'm right.
It is.
Okay.
We
And
heard
then-
that. Woohoo.
And then
Okay.
the second one is Death Unmasked. So Karen, are you going to write a third in the series? Are you in the middle of writing a third, or going to switch to something else, or?
I am writing the, no, well, I am writing the third one, which is almost finished, and that is called Death Cut. And that one picks up right as when Beth and her husband return back home. It picks up there with a character that was in the first book named Sky, making a movie. And it turns out that her director has been murdered. And Sky becomes the prime suspect. And in between writing Death Unmasked and Death Cut, I wrote another book called Murder in Plein Air, which is a light mystery or a cozy. And I'm pitching that one right now.
Fantastic. Kaylee, anybody else?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. So I said earlier I never really wanted to plot a mystery because I think it's the hardest thing to plot in the whole world. Because if you leave even the smallest detail out of place, it can ruin the entire giveaway at the end. And women's fiction is enough plotting to keep me really busy. So how do you keep all the details straight? Do you start at a certain place and work one way or the other? Or you said you were a pantser, so maybe it just happens. Maybe the Fae are doing it. Karen has Fae, F-E-Y, in her book.
That's right. Yes, right. Yes, so I start with an idea, but I just basically let it unfold. When I get to a part in the book, in the writing, where it does seem to be getting a little complicated, I do take some notes so that I can keep track of it. But I don't do that until maybe 200 pages in or so. But I tried. It's really not that hard to do, but that's just how I do it.
Do you know who I guess you don't know who the perpetrator is when you start. That just gets revealed to you along the way too.
Yes, I go through I go through probably a few different people who could be the perpetrator until I come up to the one that I think is right.
That probably lets you.
So I think it's interesting.
Sorry, it's the lag. That probably lets you do red herring.
It helps with the red.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yes, it does help with the red herrings, and I purposely, not that I'm trying to steer the reader in as there's enough suspects so that it gives the reader something to think about and try to come up with who may be the perpetrator of the crime. So I purposely have to develop a motive for more than just one character. Finds out who the killer is, they think, oh yes, that doesn't make sense. I would hate, just to pull an arbitrary character that you saw in chapter 4, you know, did the murder. Because to me, I don't like that.
I don't like it either when that happens. But you've done a really great job of plotting it all out. I love the message of your book, which I won't give away myself, but perhaps you can dance around it without giving away the end of the novel. Can you talk a little bit about what, either how timely this motive is, or how you come up with the motive, depending on what you want to give away?
I'm a big nonfiction reader, and one of the things that I do read is a lot of true crime. And I also watch true crime shows on television, which I think helps helps me with writing mysteries. So generally, I pick maybe one thing, because I know murders in real life usually are the result of either a lot of times jealousy, infidelity, money, big things like that. So I usually choose something like that and then work the story around that. And I also hope my main character offer the perpetrator a moment where they, for redemption or not. And in these two books, both of the killers in the book choose not to choose the redemption. So and I think that when you look at the characters, you could come up with your own thoughts about what would motivate them, and I don't want to give away too much in Death Unmasked as to the main killer of.
Okay, I think that the killer is totally irredeemable. So what are you hoping for from a reader of your mysteries? What do you hope they'll experience, and what do you want to leave them with when they close that final page?
Okay, so first off, I want it to be an enjoyable story. I want it to be something that they look forward to, reading. I would like for it to be interesting, and also the kind of mystery that would keep them thinking as they're turning the pages. I would the characters with the plot and with and also when they get to the end of the book, they would say, I had no idea that was the killer, but it makes sense, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book.
Well, that's the way I felt. I really love your protagonist, and I think I'm probably hooked on her now. So what was do you have a story about part of the book that wouldn't be giving something away, that was fun to research or difficult to research, or just a story about the experience of writing a particular scene?
Okay, sure. I think the parts that I like the best is the fact that Beth has a sixth sense, which, as you mentioned earlier, is called Fae. And she thinks she believes in it completely. Husband, who is a former homicide detective in the Los Angeles Los Angeles Sheriff's Department give much credence to that. He thinks that she has very good gut instincts, but he doesn't believe it. I think he calls it her hocus pocus kind of stuff. So I like the fact of when Beth is going out and she just relies on what her fae is telling her, because she believes that her fae will lead her to the truth, the fun part of the of writing those characters. And I also like the kind of like the tension between the husband and the wife.
Yeah, well done. And the fae not only lead her to what she needs to know, but they protect her too. They can save her life a couple times. Well, if she'd listen, she's a little stubborn. Don't you? Did you feel like you were writing her as stubborn?
I would say determined. I don't know. Maybe she is.
I saw myself in that,
So,
and so it could have been something from
but
my parents, that because I am strong-willed and determined, and so I apologize if that's the wrong adjective to describe her, but she does get herself into situations. She takes risks and doesn't care, right?
she does. Yes, she does. I mean, I think she cares, but her desire to find the truth is what spurs her on. And so she lets that take precedence over good common sense.
Yeah, it overrides it. And that's the mark of a true detective, I think. So it makes sense. She's a wonderful, full. So there's a part where one of the people murdered is revealed as being something that was dear to my heart. I'm not going to say what. And her friend says, poor girl lacked confidence. Her husband didn't help any. He belittled her for even thinking that she could do what she wanted to do. And that was the part of the novel I really teared up, because my dearest friend had a husband like that. She was very much a frustrated, many things, writer, inventor, poet, and a wonderful mother. And I'm wondering why you brought that into this character of Deirdre, and considering she's one of your favorite, if not for Beth, then I'm wondering why you did that, because it touched my heart, probably not just mine.
Okay. Well, I like Deirdre. Like I said, I think she's probably one of my most favorite characters. But her situation is such an in-life character. He's got a big personality. He's very wealthy, a big house. Her best friend is hugely successful, and she became a top fashion model. She does print ads, covers, and she's a spokesperson for a cosmetic company. And so here she is. Then she admires her husband because of his business sense. And she really admires her best friend being so successful, and that they grew up in the same village in Ireland. But this also leads her to lack confidence in herself. And with her husband berating her, saying that, you can write or you can do these things, of less capable of pursuing those kind of dreams.
I love that
So that's kind of,
because there's so many marriages that one partner and partnerships for that matter, where one partner is dominant and the other one isn't, and they sort of trample on the other person, not literally, sometimes literally.
Right.
And I think that it really was portrayed well in this particular story. It was delved into in a way I haven't seen in regular murder mysteries. So I commend you on that one. Another thing I commend you on is that the chase scene at the end is particularly well done. And I guess since you're a pantser, it just came to you. Is there anything you want to say about the chase scene?
Okay, well, actually, it didn't really just come to me, but what happened is I got to that part in the book, and this was the original, the first draft, and thinking, and so, and then I think I wanted to check something out about Venice, because this book did take a lot of research. Even though I studied in and have been there several times, so many details I had to check. So I think I went to look something up, and I happened to come across a YouTube video. Little child, maybe about 3 years old, a little boy with his mother. And this was before the ban on feeding the pigeons in St. Mark's Square. And he was just having a ball. He was feeding those pigeons, and they were on his shoulder, and mom was there laughing. Dad was taking, and then they walked away, and that was it. But when I saw that little scene, it was short, it was only maybe 30 seconds. That's what was going to happen next in the book. And I changed it, from a little boy to a little girl, and I changed the scene that I knew what I was going to do. And then with the scene of St. Mark's Basilica, because when my husband and I were up there, we had gone to the little museum that's up there, and we walked outside, and my husband had taken photographs. So it was really good. There's one of me standing in the same spot where in the book, Beth is standing. So I was able to look at what was there and estimate how the height of everything. And so I kind of use those as references, those photos.
Fantastic. I love photos. I think that they bring back so many memories and the detail of memory. So is there anything else you'd like to say about your characters or this book or the book before it, which we didn't have time to touch on really? And then we'll have time for a few more questions, and it's really flown as usual.
Sure. And the first book, okay, so the first book, there's a whole cast of characters in this book, because the first book takes place basically mostly in California, and the second book is in Venice. So with the third, a number of those characters are going to reappear in the third book. So I need to go back, and I'm able to write about those characters again. And it's really fun. And also in the third book, we find out that both Beth and her husband, Shane, have been keeping secrets coming out in the third book. And it kind of changes things
You hinted at that in the second book.
little bit. You hinted
at.
and, 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 Yes. So yes. So and then this is Death Cut is, I believe, the third book is going to be a trilogy and like an encore book, but it won't be like a death book. These are all death story. I'm thinking about taking Beth. She'll be going over to Ireland, and I don't want to give too much away from Death Cut, but she's going to be pursued by a stalker. So that's what I'm thinking about that book.
That's fantastic. It's not fantastic. Stalkers are horrible, but that will be a page turner for sure, because we all love her so much by this point. So why don't we ask some questions, and then you can tell people where to find your books again, and you and anything that's going to be occurring in your professional life or your life. I have so many other questions about your life, but we're going to run out of time if I ask you about, maybe I will ask your cats. How do you train rescue cats to be show cats?
Okay, well, it doesn't really take much training. It's really up to the cats. Now, all three of mine are rescues. But my first cat, and they're all well, they're all purrs. Their names are Casper, Copper, and Jasper. And I use my actual three cats with their personalities in the book that I'm pitching now, Murder in Plein Air. So they are actually in that book. And when he was a little kitten, and after about 4 surgeries, he had MRSA. He had been bit by a fox, and he had MRSA, and he had all kinds of infections. So my sister said, well, how would you like to go to the cat show? So we took him, and she took one of her cats, and we went to a cat show, and he just took to it. So in a cat show, all they really have to do is look cute and like it, and stand in front of the judges. And if they play, and if they're really cute, that's good for them. And then the other 2 are siblings, and we got them from Howard County Animal Rescue. And they were also small, but we figured when we got them, the vet said they were around 4 months old, and that's how old they have to be to start showing. So we started showing them right away. They both took to it like amazingly. And then my one Copper, he kind of decided later on when he was around 2 that he didn't really like it that much. Jasper lives for it. He lives to show. He just absolutely loves being up there. He loves being the center of attention. He looks at the people in the little audience. He gives them looks, and he just will just be a ham. And he rubs up against the judge, and he'll play on the pole, and he's just great. And that's why he actually turned out to be 3rd in the nation. And in the southern region, third in the southern region, he was 3rd, and in the nation, he was number 12. So,
congratulations.
So that's how that happened.
I could see this being a book. So. I really could. So Kaylee, do we have more comments and questions?
Yes, we do have a few more questions and some comments. The next question is from Noelle Puglisi. And Karen, she's asking, if the mystery were to become a movie, who would you want to play the victim?
The victim?
Mm-hmm.
Or the victims? Yeah, that's a really good question. However, I am so out of it when it comes to movies. I have no idea who any actors. It's funny because I write about actors and so forth, but I don't know any in real life that are actually playing in movies. So I really have no idea. I would hope that they would be actors that would be able to portray the characters the way that I envision them. So I'm sorry, I couldn't really answer that more than that.
Well, I'm assuming you describe the characters in your book. I was about to ask if you imagine certain characteristics about your characters, but I'm sure that you do for each. So how would you picture, or how did you describe the main character in your book? And maybe then the people in the comments or those who are watching can kind of picture an actress that could play the main character and maybe comment it down below.
Okay. So my main character, Beth, is her real name is Shabil. She's an Irish model. She's from Ireland. So she's about 5'10". She has auburn hair and green eyes. She has kind of a light complexion. And she's like, if you think of probably any major that have gotten to the superstar kind of supermodel, she could be just about any one of those.
Okay. The first person that came to my mind,
whoever they may be, you know.
The first person that came into my mind, I don't know how tall she is, but I thought of Emma Stone because she has like an auburn orangey hair and maybe greenish eyes. She looks like she could be like Scottish or Irish, perhaps. I don't know, but it would be interesting to see what other people are thinking. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Right.
Other than that,
I know that I have friends, and they actually choose actors to look at and base their characters on them. But I don't do that. I just kind of imagine them the way I want them to. I'm not influenced by actual people.
That's really interesting. That's a powerful imagination, definitely. Then we have a comment from Robert, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Robert Waltney. He says, hi, Kathy.
Robert Waltney, hi, Robert.
Yes. And then we have one more question from Noelle Puglisi, and she said, Karen, do you have nightmares? LOL.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear my question, Karen?
Oh no.
Having a pretty laggy moment.
So I think that thank you, Facebook gods, for getting us to this point. But I think we've lost Karen. And so I really Noelle's question was the last one, and I didn't have any more. So I am going to tell you where you can find her. You spell her name Karen, Karen, Neary, Neary, smithsonbooks.com. It's SMITHSON books.com. You can find all about her there. And obviously the books are on online retail sites as well. And it's the Beth Getty series. And I have to show my tea bag wisdom. Oh, there she is. She got back in. Karen? Well,
she's in the room.
If you can see me, I always share tea bag wisdom, and you might look to tell me what this means. I got it. Are not flowers the stars of the earth? And that's by Clara Lucas Balfour. Are you a gardener? Or is that just
no.
Maybe it's about the fae.
But I love flowers, and Maybe. My husband's a big gardener, but not me, but I love flowers.
He does the gardening and you get the bounty. That's the way it should be. I agree.
Yes. That's right.
Thank you so much. And thank you, audience, for your patience with the tech difficulties. That's what you have in some lives. And it was such a joy. I really wanted to do this for some time, Karen, and it's so nice to see you face to face. Viewers, thanks for tuning
Yes.
in. Tune in next month for my author story hour on my author Facebook page, where I will be interviewing Eileen Sanchez. She's the author of Freedom Lessons, and it's a novel based on a true story, and much of it from her life and her teaching. And we'll be talking to us, everybody. Tune in for this one, because if you're a writer, you really want to hear a small bookstore owner talk about it. Terry M. LeBlanc will be here in September. I'll be asking her questions about the kinds of books that stores are buying right now and the joys and challenges of owning a brick and mortar bookstore. I especially want to thank the people that came today and haven't been here before. Welcome, welcome. You can join me here live every third Thursday at my Facebook page, Interviewing Authors. And you can find all my interviews archived both on my Facebook pages and on my YouTube channel. And you can, I told you where you could find Karen, and you can find out more about me and my work at shoresofourSouls.com and groundonecoaching.com. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Feel free to post away. I always check in, and it might take me 24 hours to answer a comment, but I always get to it. And if there's something I can't answer, I'll pass it on to Karen. And thanks again. Until then, this is Kathy Ramsperger, bidding you a good weekend with a great book to read. Bye for now.